There you are. Look
There
at
you
us.
are. Yeah,
You look great.
The last time I saw you had sunglasses on.
Well, I'm adapting and I'm evolving to my present situation.
Oh, I like it. What's going on, Rick?
Hell, Rick.
Rick, our biggest supporter, or one of our biggest supporters. Every time I say that, like,
yeah,
I was
you
through
come
battle.
like a cunt.
Yeah, I do. I come off like a dick because we have a lot of stupid.
Well,
my TV just turned on. So how you doing, man?
Good. Little tired, little exhausted. Coming off the 50th from last night, which was awesome. Thanks for everyone that hung out with us. Yeah, thanks for all the support, guys, and gals, with our upcoming projects. It really meant a lot. And like coming out of the stream and the show, I was like,
"Hey, Jerry,
you know what I was gonna do? Jerry, what's up, brother? Oh, it's gonna be fun."
That's right. See,
all right, word, yeah,
the biggest.
Yeah.
We're gonna keep that. We're gonna keep that going.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone that came out and checked us out last night was in the chat with us, and those who were supporting our projects coming up and gave us a second to talk about ourselves and be all douchey there for a second. We really appreciate it. So thank you. We got a guest on though that is quite a bit of hours ahead of us in time. So we're not going to ramble too much. I see we already got some people watching and everything. So we just want to jump in and not waste too much of our time. So let's get this started. So it's Saturday. This is a very special episode of the
Out and Stuff. As always, King Kong ain't got shit on me. And with me, as always, is my brother and I.
The very talented, the very sexy, the very distinguished, always narcissistic but never vain, staunch defender of Rob Liefeld, and Gina Carano. So hot. And a lover of all things 90s. Joseph Michael Sonntag, or Joe M. Sonntag if you prefer, or as the Pope likes to call me, JMS. Welcome to the show, and as always, what a fucking awesome show it is we have today. I'm going to throw it to Sean, because we're excited to get talking to our guest, Sean.
Sure. Fresh off of holiday, we have artist of Cable, The Coven, Lionheart from Awesome Entertainment. His creator owned MARINEMAN from Image Comics. Supergirl, Titans, and many other titles that have came to the pages of awesome artwork. Joe, please bring up Ian Churchill.
Hey everyone.
How you doing?
That's an awesome introduction. I loved it.
Sean did a great job. Sean.
Yes. Out loud.
Thank you.
Great.
He had to make sure
for joining us.
He had to make sure he threw us. No, go ahead, Sean. I'm talking.
I just want to say thank you for joining us. It's a huge honor. Like we said pre-chat, you're a huge inspiration to both Joe and I just can't wait to geek out.
Wow, it's my pleasure to be here. I hope it all goes well. I'm sure it will.
Yeah.
And I was saying that he had to throw the Supergirl in there because he put a post on Facebook of advertising the show, and there was somebody in the comments that kind of got butthurt that he left Supergirl out of the list of characters and books. I don't know why, but you got it in the intro. So if that person is watching, I hope you're happy.
Yeah. You win some, you lose some.
So I'm looking quite red, as you mentioned, like I've come back from holiday. It's the camera, I assure you. It's nothing to do with me. I haven't been out in the sun all day or anything like that. So
you look like
I'll just throw that out there first before.
Lounging by the pool, drinking margaritas. It's all good.
What's up, Leandro?
Hey, Leandro.
We should have had a conversation before and all had margaritas going at the same time.
Oh man,
that would be some direction.
Don't threaten me with a good time. Yeah, I'm all about that life.
Well,
I'll have to do the whiskey next time.
Yeah, I'm pretty jealous too, man. You're drinking. I always say that I want to drink more on the shows, and I always forget to go buy alcohol when I'm coming home. It's just so I drink my coffee, and that is what it is. It's an okay substitute, for sure.
You can't beat coffee. Coffee's great at a pinch. I like it.
Absolutely.
It's a meal. It's a quick go meal.
Leandro says he's still in Michigan. All right. Best place you can be, my home state. That's what I'm talking about.
I've never been.
You got to sometime because it's a beautiful state in the summer and in the fall. not so much in the winter. But we got a lot of lakes, a lot of, if you're into hunting or fishing or anything like that, it's a great state to kind of be in. The scenery is awesome. It's absolutely gorgeous in certain seasons. Sean, I can see that Sean is not agreeing with me on that.
Have you ever seen 8 Mile with Eminem?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah, it's like that all over the state.
All like that.
No,
okay.
all over the state.
It's one particular. That's one particular part in Michigan. That's.
So would you mind going into your origin, how you got into drawing, how you got into comics, how you got into the geekery of the lifestyle, and what inspired you?
Well, comics. I got into comics when I was a kid. My gran, actually, she bought an old annual for me, Marvel Man annual. And I just liked the colors. And when I got old enough to read, because I wasn't old enough to read then, I just liked the escapism, and the wish fulfillment of superheroes. Because I've always been a superheroes guy. I know comics cover a vast variety of different genres and stuff, but superheroes is what got me into comic books. I think had there been more superheroes on TV back when I was growing up, I maybe wouldn't have gotten into comic books. Maybe it would have gone in a different direction. But because I wanted my fix of superheroes, and the only place you could get them at the time were comic books, it led me into comics. And also, I did like drawing. So once I realised that people actually made these things, and that people actually drew them and wrote them and stuff, rather than it all just magically coming together.
Being stamped out.
Yeah, that's kind of what I knew. That's what I wanted to do. And as for getting into the industry, I was just really, really lucky. I was right place, right time. I went to a convention in London, and I hadn't drawn comics for a number of years because I had to go and get a real job. And I got, it was a recession at the time. And I got laid off, and I didn't have anything to lose. So I wrote and drew, I think it was about maybe 5 pages of Captain America, and took it up to this convention in London. And I went in, and there were a whole bunch of people reviewing portfolios. Didn't know who they were, because there was no like fanfare like they do these days with like the big banners and stuff. Or if there were, I didn't see one. And there was some guy, some guy who was reviewing artwork, and he seemed to make a lot of sense to me. I was watching him review other people, so I got in his line, and I went up and showed him my stuff, and he liked it. He kind of went a bit quiet and said, "Am I getting any work?" And I said, "No." So he said, "I could probably change that, And I said, "Well, that'd be great if you could." So he said, "Have you got any samples that you can leave with me?" And of course, I didn't, because before the internet, I didn't know what all the submission guidelines were back then.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I had to run around trying to find a photocopy. I had to take some photocopies and take them back to him, and of course, trying to find a phone booth as well to phone my brother, because no mobile phones or anything, or cell phones, to let him know that I was having a bit of luck. And then I went back and gave the guy my sample copies. Had the presence of mind to write my address and contact details on the back, and left it, and didn't even find out who it was. I completely forgot. So I went out. I hit the bar, got a beer. I was sitting on a wall outside, and then about 10 minutes, quarter of an hour later, he came walking past me, and I tapped him on the shoulder and said, "Just who are you, by the way?" And it was Bob Harris, who was
That's awesome.
And that was, it was just pure chance. I was in the right place, right time, in the right line, and he liked what I was doing at that particular time. So I was just very, very lucky. And then they gave me a fake assignment to see if I could hit deadlines. Which I did. And then after that, I got a backup strip in an X-Men annual with Scott Lobdell, Beast backup strip, and then didn't get much after that. So I had to sort of like chase them a bit, and then I went to New York unannounced. I didn't sort of like make any prior arrangements to go up and meet anybody. I didn't think about that. I just showed up at the Marvel offices and knocked on the door pretty much, or talked to the and said, "Is Bob around?" And they buzzed me up, and I went up. And I remember I was sitting in Suzanne Gaffney's office, and she was one of the associate editors at the time, and she was just chatting to me and stuff. Said, "Do you fancy doing a Deadpool miniseries?" I said, "Yeah, sure, I'd love to." And that's how that happened. And wow. I remember sitting in her office, and there were pages of Carlos Pacheco's Bishop miniseries lineup. And I was looking at that, so I was thinking, no way I'm going to get any work. If they got this sort of caliber of art, they're not going to want me. But she said, "No, there you go," and that's how I got the Deadpool gig. And then from then on, I got pretty consistent work up until this present day. So I was just very, very lucky to be, for the second time, to be in the right place at the right time. Right. When time to see me and everything. So I'd made no prior arrangements. So yeah, I was, and that's how I got into comics. That's the short version, anyway.
Yeah, well, still,
that's awesome. That's a Disney movie. Yeah. Like Kevin Costner, like younger Kevin Costner was going to play you. They're going to CGI his face to be younger from when you were in your mid-20s, and that's how the Ian Churchill story will be on Disney Plus.
That'd be great. Yeah. Let's make that happen.
I'll
tweet it out.
Every time I talk to guys from your time of doing comics and breaking in, it's I always get it gets me in awe, because it's just how like the difficulty is nowadays, and how much the industry has changed nowadays compared to what it was back when you could actually give a physical sample, and you could run into guys like Bob Harris, and get not hired on the spot, but just get a better foot in the door right off the bat, and then work your way up from project to project. It's inspiring, to think about it, but then it's depressing when I think about the way, for any younger artist, younger than us, trying to break into industry now is so completely different, which is one of the reasons why we're such big advocates of independent books and just kind of do your own thing and self-publish and whatnot. But yeah, just to hear how guys like you broke into the industry, it's very entertaining to me, because I'm like, that's the way it should be, and that's the way that I feel it should still be, even though it's not.
Well, it was like that for a long time, wasn't it? I think that's why we've all become accustomed to the way things were. But, culture in general has changed so much over the last 20, 30 years, with technology and stuff.
Yeah.
It's a double-edged sword, with the way things have gone. It's, in some respects, it's far easier these days to find access into the comic book industry, because, like you say, you can publish something online. It doesn't even have to be a physical copy. There's so many different ways you can do it these days. So it swings and roundabouts, really. I personally prefer the old days when you could go and physically meet somebody in face to face, but these days, with the advent of digital technology, as far as a tool for drawing and stuff, you can do so much more. You can pencil, ink, color in the space of time it might have taken you to just pencil a page in the old days. There's just so many different ways, strings to your bow, and you can show editors what you're capable of these days far more than you used to be able to in the old days, in some respects, I think.
I'll agree with you on that. I think the fantasized aspect of the old days is the fact that you could have that face-to-face interaction, and you could actually get to know somebody with a handshake and a conversation while your portfolio, while your art's being looked at. It's a little bit more of like a human contact, where, yeah, you're right. The technology today makes it easier in some respects, because you're always able to put your stuff up, current stuff up, on so many different sites and get your stuff noticed. but then it's just like a disconnect, because you can be talking to somebody halfway across the world about your work, and all it is just your work, which I understand that's what you're being judged on, but at some point I always like hearing about the human interaction, like you and Bob Harris, you know, or anybody that's gone through that, you know, met an editor, met a writer, and then that person helped them in, you know.
Bear in mind, he may remember it completely differently. You know, that's my version. That's how I remember it. I've been saying it all these years. It doesn't mean it's true. It's just how I remember it. He might have a completely different version of things.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I feel you.
In fact, if he did, I'd love to hear it, because he might have thought, oh, who's this gawky kid that's just brought this stuff up? I've really got to look at this. Jesus. Yeah, it could have been completely different. You just don't know, do you? There's always two sides to every story.
That's true.
And also context. Like when you're typing, you know, like, oh, you have your letters in all capitals. I must be mad. No, I'm just writing that way. Like, just that's how it is. Like, somebody might get offended.
Turn the caps off.
When they shouldn't.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, that's true.
It's but I want to know, when did you first create the Coven? Because I remember seeing a picture that you did back. I think one of the Coven.
Such an awesome book.
One of my favorites. I read it at least like once a year. I'm going to sound stupid saying this now, but the back of issue 1, one of the reprints, it was a picture you did, a marker drawing from when you were younger.
Oh yeah, I know the one you mean. Yeah, I was 17 when I created the Coven.
Oh wow!
So I was on day release to college. So I was still reading comics. But I was working at a graphic design studio, because I was a graphic designer for 7 years or so. Straight out of school, I didn't go to college, proper college, art college, or anything like that.
Right.
School of Hard Knocks.
Yeah, School of Hard Knocks. Yeah. So I was on a day release course to the local college, and I was going less and less frequently, because we had more and more deadlines on at work, and I had to get that done before I could go on my college day. But when I was at college, I was still drawing superheroes, and which is one of the reasons I failed the course. You know, but while I was there, I was sort of like thinking stuff up, and I was 17 when I created the Coven, and initially it was a different lineup of characters, but it's one of those. I was quite happy with the way it was going. It was one of those ones I wasn't going to put away. You know, I was going to keep tinkering with it and keep evolving it in the back of my mind, just in case I ever did get the opportunity to do it. And as you know, eventually it all happened. So I was quite happy, to make it fruition.
And what was the behind the scenes way that came about? That you were actually able to do the book?
The book, it was basically, I'd just done Heroes Reborn with Jeff Loeb, and he was hanging out with Rob a lot, and then he told me that he was in partnership with him with Awesome Comics, and we got talking about characters somehow or other. We were talking about the Coven. He said, "Oh, you should tell Rob about it." You know, so I think we all went out, and I explained the pitch, and Rob was like, "Yeah, we're gonna do it. We're gonna make some money. Yeah, let's do it. Great. You're gonna have a great time." You know what Rob's like? He's very gregarious. It's investment. You won't find anyone more into comics than Rob.
True. And, hard facts.
He just it was great, and so that's what got the ball rolling, and then we published it, and it seemed to do really well. It was at a time when supernatural stuff was, sort of riding high in comics, wasn't it? I think you had Michael Turner with Witchblade over at Top Cow, and it was just like the right time and place for it, and it did pretty well, and we all had a great time doing it. From what I can remember, I mean, it was over 20 years ago now, so
it's crazy how time flies.
It's
so crazy how time flies. That's awesome though. Again, like I said, I love hearing the the connection stories. So, you know, talk to this person talks to this person, you get the ball rolling, and the project's all of a sudden in the works, and then boom, you're on it and it's out, you know, because as a kid, you just see titles drop, you know, you pick up the titles based on the art, characters, or story. Yeah. But getting older and hearing the behind the scenes, it's almost like I do the same thing with movies. I love behind the scenes documentaries on movies, you know, how the script came to be and like all that kind of stuff, because it's just, my mind works like that. I'm the process guy. I love the process of it, almost sometimes more than the actual product. You know, if that makes sense.
Because you like doing that sort of stuff, and you want to do that sort of stuff, don't you?
Yeah.
To some people that don't have any aspirations to that, they don't want to look behind the curtain. They don't want to see how the magic happens. They just want the magic to happen in front of them, you know? Because you've got a certain brain. I know what you mean. I'm exactly the same.
I'd rather watch like a Steven Spielberg movie, but the documentary, like AI, love it. The movie's cool, dig the movie, but like I like the or Jurassic Park, and like his thought process, and you see him kind of dissect whatever they bring to him at the moment. It's like,
what's going on, Christopher John?
Hey, Christopher John.
I'm starting to get used to the fact that these little things keep popping up all over the place, don't they?
Yeah, it's a chat, the good peoples.
Yep. But yeah, look, that's one of the reasons why I like Rob's podcast so much, is because you get so much of kind of like the explanation of behind the scenes stories from his perspective in his career, but just talking about the industry. And that's, again, like I said, you know, because that's where my brain's at, that's where my passion is at. I love just hearing about how people came to be, how they came up with a project, you know, what character came from what, where the story came from, and then how that, you know, actually came to be. It's so interesting to me. So that's the only reason why I kind of harp on it a little bit more so than like the finished product in some cases. But
yeah, we all dig. Okay, we're picking up what you're putting down.
I couldn't catch that. The sound was going.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said we were picking up what he was putting down, like his you know, what he was saying. You know, we agreed.
Yeah, sometimes Sean and I will talk to each other and it'll cancel out the sound. So bear with us.
That's
sometimes we do it all the time. I do it all the time. It's my fault. I'm an idiot. I'm sorry.
All right, you go. You go.
Okay.
Me?
Okay.
Or you? Oh, sure. Okay.
Sean,
Yeah.
Sean?
Yes. Did you have any plans? Like, let's say if the Coven was to ever come back, or even Lionheart, like a what if of, not without giving away spoilers. Like, I got an idea. You know.
There was going to be. If I remember, because Jeff took over writing the Coven. I did the first story arc, or I plotted the first story arc, and Jeff scripted it, and then Jeff took over and took over the writing, and I just pretty much just did the artwork. But there was a story, Mark Saxon, Black Mass. He was his father was going to die. Well, this is something I had in my head. I hadn't told Jeff or anything, but his father was going to die, and him and Grimoire have to kind of put their differences aside to go and see their father on the deathbed, sort of thing. And I think it was going to be his father was going to give Mark his pocket watch, and it's just a very innocuous pocket watch. And I thought, I think it's called daylight savings in America, isn't it? You know, when you put it forward, and put it backwards. Yeah. So he gives him the watch. Nothing happens. They, you know, have some animosity between them. You know, the two brothers, and then and some of the other family come together as well, because obviously the seventh son of the seventh son. So there'll be the other brothers happy. And then I was going to have them go their separate ways, and the watch was just going to be forgotten about, and Mark was going to carry it around in his waistcoat pocket or whatever. And then it gets to the time where you have to put the clocks back, and it turns out it's an enchanted watch, and he puts it back an hour, but it takes him back 1,000 years. And you know, he has his adventures 1,000 years ago, which ultimately affects the present day or what have you. And then when it comes to set the clock forward, it brings him back as if nothing's happened and nothing's left. You know, nothing's changed. It was going to get a little bit trippy, and that's what I was planning. You know, I hadn't nailed everything down, but that was the general direction I was going to go in on that one. And it was going to indirectly affect Lionheart. I can't remember how I was going to do it. It was going to be something about oh, that was it. I was going to introduce another character. It was another character. Yeah, it was I hadn't decided on a name. It was either going to be Earthen or the Green Man, because there's like a British tradition folklore thing about the Green Man who lives in the forest, and he kind of merges into the woods and stuff, and it was going to be something like that. And that was it. Yeah, he had to sacrifice his eyes to become this Green Man sort of thing. He was a local villager. His sister got abused. He wanted revenge, so he went to a druid. And the druid said, yeah, we can do all this, but you're going to have to sacrifice to the XYZ, whatever, you know.
Right.
He gives away his eyes. He turns green, has these horns and stuff, and can blend into the forest and is super strong, whatever. But he can hear and see and feel what the forest feels because he doesn't have his eyes. That was the sacrifice, but he gains so much more, sort of thing. That was going to be that. Then he was going to get defeated somehow or whatever, and enchanted and buried in the ground for like 1,000 years or whatever it was, and then but could only be released if something innocent passed over and broke the spell, something like that. Anyway, so there was going to be I think it was a girl on horseback, very young girl on horseback, and she's riding along and goes over where he's buried. That breaks the spell. Suddenly he comes up out of the ground, and it's like nothing's passed for him. You know, it's like been 1,000 whatever years, nothing's passed, and he doesn't know where he is. Jeff suggested, because I did tell this to Jeff, and Jeff suggested, because I was going to have him just come up from under the ground, probably under a road, you know. And Jeff's kind of like, no, you got to think bigger. You got to think bigger. It's an airport. It's going to come up underneath an aircraft. Yeah, and he's got all this other stuff going.
Awesome.
And I thought, that's pretty cool, actually. You know? I started trying to think like Jeff, you know. But yeah, he was going to come up. You know, things were going to happen to him, whatever. Anyway, and then he was going to go to a museum, and there was going to be an amulet of some kind, and he couldn't see it. And what was it going to happen? It was related to Lionheart. Oh, something. It might have been his sister's. I can't remember. But from his perspective, it belongs to him. It doesn't belong to the museum or whatever. So he just takes it. Lionheart comes in, but he oh, that was it. That was it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. When Mark sets the clock back and goes back 1,000 years in time, he was going to hang around with or become the original Lionheart, or one of the earlier holders of the Lionheart thing.
Oh.
That was it. Something similar. Yeah, something like that. And then, so in this museum, Earthen, or the Green Man, whatever you want to call him, has a fight with the current Lionheart because of this amulet. It was all interconnected. It was, like I say, 20 years ago. But that was
awesome.
I was going to say, it sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. At least in my head, I hadn't spoken to a lot of this to Jeff. So he may have had other ideas and probably would have taken it in a different direction. Jeff liked the idea of making them more like a supernatural Avengers. So it probably would have gone more like that. But yeah, that's what I remember anyway.
No, that's super cool. Yeah, I
hope that didn't bore you too much.
Oh.
Well, yeah. If spoilers, if that ever does come to be, because I think that would be pretty damn cool. Thanks for the insight on that. Yeah, I always really enjoy hearing that when a series has ended or whatever, but there were more stories kind of rattling around in the creators' brains about where they would have taken the character, you know, just kind of get an insight where those characters might have gone, or still might go, you know, in the future. What's going on, Nefarious? See, you jumped in there, and he said, so I probably missed this intro, but what the heck is Ian wearing on his head?
It's a tricorn hat. Everybody was wearing hats, so I grabbed a hat.
Yeah, he's a pirate pilgrim hat. Yep.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
And I'm telling you, I've wanted that style of hat for a long time. And don't ask me why, but I do.
They're cool.
Tell me why.
No. Stop that singing. Stop that singing. I'm not going.
What was that? Backstreet Boys or something?
You know, man.
Was that Backstreet? Yeah.
There we go.
You don't even want to know. You don't even want to know this show.
What? You're crazy.
What?
No. Is there a dream project besides let's say the Coven, like that you would want to work on that from with a specific writer, maybe an inker, colors team, whether it be comics or something else?
I don't know. Always like working with Norm Ratman. Norm Ratman's a great inker when it comes to inking. I like inking myself as well, you know, especially since I went digital. I kicked and screamed and rebelled against going digital for a long, long time. You know, everyone was saying, you should do it, man. You should take the plunge. You should go digital. You get twice as much work done, you know, and all the things that go with it. And I was like, no, I'm quite happy with my pen and pencil. You know, I'm going to keep going old school and what have you. And I was asking lots of my contemporaries, you know, how they found it, you know, going digital. They were all saying, you know, I love it, but I'm not going to give up the paper, apart from a few. Right. And then, and of course, the money thing as well. You know, digital Cintiq panels aren't cheap, and I didn't want to sort of like drop that sort of cash on one and not be able to get on with it. You know. Yeah. So I kept sort of like, you know, thinking about it, but not really jumping in the pond. And then eventually, obviously, the iPad Pro came out, and with Procreate, that made it a bit more affordable, or at least enough that I could take a gamble on it. And I haven't looked back. You know, as I get older, my eyesight's not what it was. So being able to work on the iPad and blow things up and reduce them at the, you know, pinch of my fingers, being able to work in black and white rather than pencil and paper, you know, the contrast is so much better and easier to see. And, you know, if I need to zoom in, I can. And also, you know, if I'm working traditionally, which I still do for commissions and stuff, right. You know, I'm sitting there at the desk, and I've got a pair of glasses that I put on for drawing the page. And then if I want to see the proportions, I have to take those glasses off, put another pair of glasses on, get back a bit, then change them over again. And it's time consuming. And on the iPad, just one pair of glasses, in, out, you know, it's so much more convenient. And I just love it. You know, it's the one thing I wouldn't change now is working on the iPad. I just find it so much more user-friendly. I mean, there's nothing, don't get me wrong, nothing beats drawing on a piece of paper and having that friction and stuff and the feel. But from a workflow point of view, it's just so much more efficient working digitally. I don't know why I kicked and screamed so much, you know, before jumping in. Well, I do know. I just explained it, but you know, but I kind of wish I hadn't held off in some respects, you know. But yeah, I can't remember what the question was now.
What was the question, Sean?
No, you answered it. I think you answered it. Yeah, you answered it.
Did I? Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
Oh, did you say something about dream projects, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Just my own stuff, really. You know, I've got so many characters I've created over the years that I'd love to do, but it's just finding the time to do them. You know, and like you were saying, in the old days, it was a lot easier to get something underway. I suppose these days you've got Kickstarter and stuff.
Yeah.
Different ways of funding it, but it is expensive to publish a comic book. So, you know, whenever I've done it in the past, I've had to work in conjunction with someone that will publish it for me. So, you know, I wouldn't rule out Kickstarter, but it's not something that's ever been on my radar.
I was just gonna ask if you had ever thought about doing like a crowdfunding. I know that Indiegogo is really popular now for a lot of guys like us, and for doing that, it's got I think a better following than Kickstarter, in my opinion. But it is a lot of work, so it just depends on. Nefarious is.
We're a bunch of ball busters. Everybody in chat, we bust each other's chops. It's all for fun, and we got a great chat. Yeah.
What's wrong with my shirt?
Yeah.
Oh, he means the hat, obviously.
Yeah. But I'm not kidding, Nefarious. I am gonna find one of those hats, and I'm gonna start wearing it on the show every once in a while, because I like those.
If I can find one, I'll send it to you. It was just from a fancy dress shop.
Yeah, it was just that's what I got to do. I like.
You can get really good ones on the internet. There's a place on Etsy called Pirate's Wife, and she'll make bespoke ones out of leather for you, and they look fantastic, and they're not outrageously expensive. They're not going to break the bank.
Oh, word.
So if you really want a nice one, that's the place to look, I think. Otherwise, your average fancy dress place. You know, this one's just made of felt. I don't know if you can see it. It's got like
I can see
the texture and all that.
It's got like, it's just
there we go.
Velcro, you know, it opens up.
There you go. I'm gonna get. Yep, I like it.
Oh, there you go. You found it. Yeah.
All right, I'm on it. I'm gonna get one of these. It's gonna happen.
Look at you.
I'm telling you. It's gonna happen.
Isn't technology great when it works? I can say that. You go tap tap tap, and suddenly it's up there. It's amazing.
Yep.
Shilling for Indiegogo, yeah.
Yep. Go for Indiegogo. That's where it's at if you ever do it.
Okay.
Sorry, Sean. I didn't mean to. I know you've got the questions. I'm doing the producing today. I'll jump in every once in a while, let my sexy face be seen, and then say something comedic. But
Joe, I didn't know if you knew this or not, but this is also your show, so I will allow you to chit the chat from time to time.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome, my good man. What's a typical work day for you?
It varies. In the old days, it used to be far more time consuming, especially working like we were just talking traditional media. I would. Back when I was drawing in pen and paper or pencil and paper, I would probably wake up when I woke up, which was normally about 9-ish. I'd be at the drawing board by 9:30, 10, and I would work through till about 1:30 when I'd have half an hour for lunch, watch the news headlines. Then I'd get back to work. I would work up until about 6 o'clock. I would break for about half an hour, have something to eat. Then I'd be back to work till probably about, barring a cup of coffee here and there, probably about 3 o'clock in the morning, and then do it all again the next day. And that was a constant sort of pretty much 6 days a week to hit deadlines, basically. The deadlines were so crushing, you know, it was the only way to get it done. These days, I'm getting too old to do that, frankly. It's a young man doing that sort of stuff. I mean, I'm 52 next month, so I kind of I'm knocking on a bit. I don't sort of like crunch those hours anymore, but it's still not a short day. You know, it takes so much time to draw in a certain way, and you know, if I draw MARINEMAN style, let's say, I'm a lot faster. And when I did Code Red with Jeff over at Marvel, you know, the Red Hulk storyline with Deadpool and Elektra, all the characters that had red in their name, and that was kind of in that style, and that was a breeze, you know. It took a lot less time, let's put it that way. There were other factors when I was doing that. I had some shoulder trouble, so you know there was lots of different things. But on the whole, if I'm drawing in that detailed style, you know, that I've become known for, it just takes that amount of time to draw that way, you know. So to hit deadlines, I would have to be working pretty much every hour that I could. And I'm not begrudging it, you know. As far as jobs go, it's a cracking job. There's a lot of worse ways to spend your time. And I'm not knocking it at all, but you know, it was kind of you've got to love drawing comics to put those sort of hours in. You know, anyone that works in comics, you both know it as well. You know, if you want to, when you love something, you don't blink, do you? You don't think about it. You just do it. It's what you've got to do. You know, you just got to step up to the plate and take a swing, as they say.
I was awesome. playing off of that. I've noticed a lot of artists, and because I'm a heavily detailed artist myself, I can't help myself. I like to cram detail in. I haven't found a way to kind of separate myself to have a faster process, but I've noticed that a lot of the artists that start early in their careers and are more detailed, sometimes the later in their careers they keep pulling back and back and back from their detail, you know, probably to hit deadlines or whatever. Is that easier sometimes when you're working with an experienced inker that can pick up some of that detail for you, when you can just kind of...
Yeah, it can be. I mean, my natural style is the style that I draw in for, like, the MARINEMAN stuff that you've seen.
Oh, okay.
And the Coven.
Yeah, I've heard that.
That's how I naturally draw.
Oh, all right.
Like, I always say it's like Disney on steroids. And then kind of almost a bit like Ed McGuinness used to draw in some respect.
Okay. Yep.
Hey, Jamie.
He seems to have detailed his stuff up a lot lately. I noticed the other day. But anyway, that's by the by. So when I got hired by Marvel initially, I was drawing kind of like that still. And I was having a chat with Bob Harris. We were out at dinner one night. And I said, so how do I get more work? And he said, well, you need to start drawing more like Jim Lee. Yeah. And I said, oh, okay. And how do you mean? He said, well, lots of detail and, you know, chisel things off, make things sharp, not surrounded and stuff. I took that to heart. So I practiced a fair bit. And that's why my style eventually changed and went into that ultra detailed sort of approach. Yeah. Which served me well. You know, it got me work, and he was dead right. You know, I carried on getting work, but I had to learn how to do that. And if you look at it, my detailed style, certainly back then, was kind of like you know, it was the same approach as I do the MARINEMAN stuff. It was just over-rendered from my perspective. You know, do you know what I mean? But it worked, you know, and it did well. I mean, I'm one of these artists that gets more detailed as I get older, it would seem. Unless I'm drawing in the MARINEMAN style, the stuff I do lately is just like ridiculously detailed, but it's not what I would call over-rendered. There's a, let me think how to put this. I think there's a very distinct difference between over-rendering and detail, and I never know whether people are loving the detail or loving the over-rendering or the rendering of a piece of art. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In respect to me, rendering or whatever is all the cross-hatching and the noodly-doodly stuff that you use to kind of light your subject and stuff. That and to make it look kind of cool. And detail is the sort of thing that George Perez would do. You know, it would be like a gnat flying around, a lock of hair which is super rendered, and then do you know what I mean? It's attention to detail. It's like an album cover where nobody's asked for an album cover, but he'll stick an album cover in the background just because he wants to. You know, that's detail to me.
Okay.
Rendering is the actual drawing and making things look. You know what I mean? I don't know if
that makes perfect sense. No,
but that's how I see things in my head. So there is a difference between rendering and detail. And when people say, I love all the detail that you used to do, I'm never sure whether they're talking about the noodly doodly lines in the rendering or the stuff that I would put in the background that wasn't called for. Do you know what I mean?
That's a great way of breaking down. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's a great way of breaking that down, because when I say detail, to me it's a whole. First, when I say detail, I'm looking at like the rendering, and then I'm looking at everything is crammed into a panel or a page or whatever. So technically, I look at it as all, but mainly I'm looking at like the rendering. So when you get overly rendered or heavily rendered light sources and cross hatching, that's kind of what I think of when it's like detail. But the way you broke it down makes a lot of sense. I never really thought about it as a detail / over render, heavily rendered kind of concept. That makes a lot of sense.
See, to me, when I heavily render something, it's over rendered, because I think in a more simplistic way of drawing, because my natural style is more cartoony. That's how I see everything in my head. And then I have to overthink it, because I was kind of suggested to draw more like Jim. So I'm thinking, how would I draw this normally? And then how would I overcompensate to make it look cool and more like they want it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I did. Now I can do it second nature, but back then I really had to overthink it and kind of second guess myself a lot to try and make sure I was giving them what they wanted, you know?
Is there a specific pencil that you used or technique to get those type of lines? Because like I get really girly when it comes to your lines.
That's what I use.
Is that number 7?
Hold on. It's a 0.3.
Oh, okay.
HB. Where have you both gone?
Oh, he just put you up to spotlight you.
Yep, I just blew it up so we can see what you're showing.
It's a 0.3 HB mechanical pencil.
Yep.
Okay, I got plenty of those.
Back when I was doing, and I've been using that for years, but back when I was doing all the image stuff that you were talking about, I was using a 7H regular pencil that you would sharpen with a, and that was mainly, purely because I'd read an interview. No, it wasn't a clutch pencil. It was just a regular pencil.
Okay.
And it, I'd read somewhere that John Byrne used one. So when I was breaking in and practicing and stuff, I kind of thought, well, if it's good enough for John Byrne, it's good enough for me. So I went out and bought exactly the same, and I was using that for years, but it worked out to be a little bit too hard for me. It's great for keeping a straight and keeping a very sharp line. But I kind of like the softer approach when I use a regular pencil these days. So
I was just gonna say, everyone says it's not the tools, it's the artists. There's some people that I've seen purposely draw some stuff on just a plain old number 2, yellow pencil. So
but there's also a technique and finesse to it to achieve that goal, and it's a tool itself. Like if you know the proper tool to achieve it, like I'm not going to drill holes in the wall with
I have to draw on these. Like this is right. These are mechanical pens. This is it's just one of the standard
leads,
HB and 4H that I draw with. And I got mechanical, like you said, the same kind of mechanical pencils. Those are what I have to draw with. It's just what I kind of feel comfortable.
Oh, you frozen up?
I frozen up?
Yeah, you did just then. Yeah.
You roboted.
I'm good now? Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully I'm not having internet problems. But anyway, that's just what I'm comfortable with. That's just what I kind of gravitated to when I started to learn that there were certain artists that use different tools, because when I started drawing, it was just a pencil, because that's all I knew. My mom gave me a regular pencil. That's how I drew. And then when I started doing more research and I learned what Jim Lee drew with, and what all these other artists were like, this is what we use. And I go to the art store and I'd find it. I'm like, oh, okay, And I just kind of gravitated farther and farther as I knew different tools and techniques. And it's just, I like the sharpness of mechanical pencils over having to constantly sharpen an actual pencil. So that's my main thing.
Yeah, me too.
And like for inking,
when you change
you'll get a softer line with a brush as opposed to using a tech pen or a nib. So again, it's the tool, knowing the proper tool to use the job at hand. That's all it is. And yeah, you gotta know your shit. Don't get me wrong. You know,
it's just I find it easier when you just have to go click click. And that's But when you come to change the lead, how do you go about doing that? Do you do it the traditional way, like you're supposed to, which is take the thing apart, or do you try and thread it like a needle through the front?
Thread it like a needle.
I do every single time. I press the release and I get the lead and I put my glasses on and I try and thread it like a needle through the thing at the front and push it right up and then let it connect, because it saves so much time.
It's easy with these because they're 2 millimeter, but when you break down to the 0.03s and stuff, I do the same thing too. I will thread it in there like it's surgery or something. I'll spend like a couple minutes just trying to line it up so I can get it down. Yep. Because I'm too lazy to take it apart.
Talking of pencils, I was watching that one you were doing with Dan. I couldn't believe he collects pencils.
Dude is
they're really cool.
Not just pencils, but they have to be American pencils.
Yeah. Yeah, he's very specific.
That's very specific.
Very specific on the pencils he uses. That's for sure.
I didn't know that about him, but yeah.
Neither did I. Like the more after we had that conversation, I've seen more of the stuff. Like he'll post on social media when he finds a new pencil or something that he's trying new, and more power to him. Like I don't like the feel of a regular pencil. Like there's something about the feel of like that lead holder that feels good in my fingers drawing.
I'll use these for artsy fartsy. This won't go anything like a 2H. It's just like HB and
that's a big boy.
Yeah, up. And this is just a carpenter's pencil, but it makes cool texture. So
I also use one of those. It's an eraser. The same principle though. You hit the back of it, and the eraser comes out the front.
Yeah. We
I was just saying, I have to use these now. Like I use my kneading eraser for for what I need to use. Like detailed. These? I love these because it's just if you want to erase something, like when I do layouts, I'll do very light layouts, so I don't ruin my paper with too many going because I erase a lot. I'm not as experienced enough to just throw stuff out like the pros do and then get rolling. So I'll do a lot of corrections, and I find that if I draw really light and really loose, that kneading eraser will go right over it and it'll take it up, but leave the base of what I was working on. So if I liked kind of the construction of it, I'm not completely erasing it and starting it from scratch. Same thing when you ink something, you can go over it with a kneading eraser as you're cleaning stuff up, and it's a lot not as harsh as like a regular eraser does. So I personally like it. It's those are my main tools right there. The kneading eraser, this one for detail, and then all my pencils, and then whatever I ink with. Right now I've been inking with the Faber-Castell pens. I've actually been enjoying these lately. For inking, they're just smooth. But I do everything traditionally. Sean and I are always back and forth.
I use those.
Oh, those are great. Yeah, I used those in college. Those were great. I still have a few. Yeah, they're fun.
I tend to use those.
I don't think I've ever used those before.
Ones, but yeah, generally, I think the thinnest one they do is 0.5, which is what I use the most.
Wow, that's cool.
Wow.
Yeah. It's the only, for me at least, when I'm working on a sort of like 11 by 17, it's the only way to get in and do the detail that the mechanical pencil would do. So I have to use one. But I also like sometimes, especially if it's something, a line that's important, and I don't want to screw it up, I'll build the line up rather than just do one sweep with a thick pen or whatever. I'll use a really thin pen, build the line up until I get the exact line that I want, and then sort of like extrapolate from there. But it depends on the project. But yeah, and it's great. Those little thin ones, the the 0.5. They're great for stubble. If you're doing stubble on someone,
yep.
You know,
that's why I like using pens.
In technology these days, they can cope with it. Back in the old days, they probably couldn't. But
oh yeah.
I would say that's why I like using pens, because you can kind of get the tiny little detail. And I'm not good at a nib and a quill. I've tried before. I didn't need more practice. So, and I'm not an inker. You know, I can ink over my stuff, and I try to be, you know, conscious of line weights and lighting sources and stuff like that. But you know, I'll admit it, I'm not an inker. But when I have to, you know, I'll do it. But a lot of times when I ink, my process is I'll do everything real thin lines to get a layout, and then I'll go back and build up on the lines, kind of like what you were talking about, to thicken stuff up and get the light sources more established.
I was going to just say, because I mean, these days you don't necessarily have to ink either. You can. I remember when Mike Turner started just going into pencil, you know, just using pencil rather than being inked. Rob went, game changer.
That was too, though.
Light up. It's like, we don't have to get inks anymore. It's great.
Yep. Yeah, if you can pencil real tight, you know, you can go right into colors. You know, and Michael Turner was great at it. Rob did a great job of doing that stuff too.
I did it a few times. I penciled some, because my pencils are quite tight, and if I specifically made them quite tight, I can scan them, darken it down in Photoshop, and it looks like it's been inked. But I do prefer, you know, sort of like inking on the iPad. I like it because there's a lovely pen that just works so well.
It is nice.
It's just a standard pen that came with Procreate, but it's just, there's so many different variations on it that you can, the way you use it, gives you so many different effects.
Yeah.
Have you found yourself? I'm sorry, Joe. This is just an iPad question.
No,
but
like, I was going to say something.
When you're doing a traditional piece, have you ever found yourself double tapping the paper? Because I've done that many times. I'm like, what are they doing? You know?
And I've got to pinch it bigger as well. There was what was it? I was having a chat with Dave Gibbons once, and he went completely digital. But when in his early days, when he first went over, he said that he was drawing something, and he drawing digitally, and his arm went across the screen, and it drew this big black line across the screen. He thought, and then suddenly remembered that he could just do like a double tap and it's gone. You know, but he had that initial, you know, traditional media shock. Like there was going to be no way to undo it. I was cracking up when he told me that. Yeah.
My internet's running slow for some reason. We're creeping right up on that hour mark. I gotta say that this has been an absolute joy. Sean and I, we are nerds when it comes to talking about the tools of the trade too. So anytime we can get in conversations about what people use, you know, I love that too. You know, it's just like it's the whole behind the scenes thing. Yeah. You know, and I was gonna say the same thing. Like, I don't do traditional or digital drawing per se. Like, I do have the iPad. I got the iPad Pro, the 12.9 versions. I got the version with Procreate, and I do a lot of work in Procreate. A lot of times I'll do like character design in Procreate, so I can throw some quick colors on it, you know, so I can have a color source if I'm working with a colorist. There definitely is an advantage to digital art for sure. There's just something with the feel, like you're saying, like there's just a different feel I'm addicted to when it comes to like the traditional stuff. But I definitely like doing character designs, quick character sketches, and all that kind of stuff in Procreate. It's such an easy, user-friendly program. It's insane.
And anyone that tells you can't do professional work with the iPad Pro and Procreate is just, you know, not telling you that you don't need a Cintiq, you don't need all the whistles and bells. You can. I mean, I've done, you know, countless amount of comic books from start to finish on the iPad Pro and Procreate, and I'm not affiliated with any of them. You know, I'm just saying that as a guy, and I'm still working with the first generation iPad Pro and the pencil that you plug in, the one that goes on the side.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Okay.
I've got a maximum of 12 layers when it comes to high resolution comic book stuff.
Oh shit!
And
but
you find a way to do it. You know, and one of the best things is the perspective thing. I mean, that saves so much time. Being able to just going zing zang zong, you know.
That, yeah, I'm not gonna lie, like that, like there's a part of me that when I'm doing perspective on traditionally, that I wish I kind of had a grid that I could just pop right up instead of having to draw the lines, painstakingly do all the different lines and build your perspective.
I never did that. I never did that. I always cheated. I don't know if it's a tip, but what I would do back in the old days, I would draw the characters first and get them into the position I wanted, and then extrapolate the perspective lines from the characters. If that makes any sense at all.
It actually makes perfect sense, because even though I just said it that way,
they always sat in the right place in conjunction with the perspective. And I always remember my art teacher at school saying there's no such thing as a straight line. And it always stuck in my head, because, if you go down small enough, microscopic, it's like jiggity jaggedy, jiggity jaggedy.
Oh, yeah.
It's like on a computer screen. If you zoom in, it goes like that, doesn't it? There's no such thing as a straight line.
Yeah.
That's what he used to tell me. So that stuck in my head. And I always thought, well, if it looks right to the eye, if it looks okay, and no one's saying, "Oh, that looks wrong," then the chances are it's pretty much right. I never got hung up too much on whether my perspective was totally accurate. I just wanted it to look right.
I'm glad you said that, because as much as I try to grid stuff out, there is an impatientness with me that sometimes I'll just start doing what you said. And that sometimes it depends. Like if I'm trying to do a cityscape and I just don't want things to look too wonky, I'll spend a little bit more time. But if it's just a couple characters in a situation, I do that. I kind of loosely draw in my characters and then build the perspective around them. And I always thought it was cheating, and I never really told people I did that, because I don't want somebody to be like, "Oh, you don't know how to draw, right?"
It depends on how you look at it. A purist would say that you're cheating, but I don't think there's any right way or wrong way in art. It's subjective. Do whatever works for you and whatever gets you to the finish line on time. I think John Romita Jr. is one of the guys that's famous for saying his style is whatever he has to do to hit the deadline. And I've always remembered that, and I think he's totally right. You just gotta, if you've got a really tough deadline, you've just got to do whatever you have to do to get there. And if that means just going by eye with perspective to save the time of drawing a grid, then fair play.
When it comes to actually already having a job, I think that's something I definitely gravitate to. It's always hard, because when you talk to people or when you read articles about how to submit work and how that you're supposed to get your work set, because you want to impress, the editor, you want to impress whoever's going to be looking at your work, then it's like painstaking. You got to try to make sure that all your shit looks, perfect, for them to be like, you look like you could have a chance. Let me give you something small, instead of being like, you're a joke. Don't show your stuff. You don't know how to draw, So like, in my opinion, what you said works for me, where like, if it looks good, to me, that's good. If it doesn't look funky and it's not perfect perspective, then I'm fine with it, honestly.
I was just gonna follow up on that with, you can only do it if you've got a grasp of perspective, though. If you know how perspective works and roughly where all the lines are going to go, if you had drawn it out with a grid, that's the only way to do it. Anyone that is seeing it as a shortcut is going about it the wrong way, because you have to understand how perspective works to be able to do it. You can't do it without having to learn. You can't. You know what I mean? You've got to have a foundation.
Great. Yeah, it's a good point. Bringing that
people
up.
think it's a quick push of the button. Like, oh, you draw digitally, so you just push a button and that happens. No, again, I got to know my fundamentals. I know how to do it and how to run the program. There's still work involved. It's just a tool,
I was going to say exactly the same thing. It is a tool. It's another tool at your disposal when it comes to art. Is a drawing program. Like you say, you have to be proficient with it and know when to push forward and know when to pull back. Because so many people are dazzled by the things that Photoshop can do that they tend to overuse it. And you got to know what to do, don't you? Sometimes too much is too much. Sometimes
I'm guilty of that. I'm like, oh, look at this trick, throw it everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. And you can't be doing that. yeah.
Well, Sean, I know you had.
Sorry.
I
don't know.
Oh, yeah, you're fine. I was like, I know Sean had some questions. He was gonna geek out for a little bit. I was trying to keep this around an hour because I know you're way ahead of us in time, and I don't want to cut too much into your evening.
We're okay at the moment. It's good.
Okay,
right.
Sean, do you have any quick ones you want to throw out there?
Do you have a memorable moment at a convention where it's meeting somebody you admired, or from a fan, or a really weird commission request? Because those do happen.
Oh yeah, you do. Weird commission request. Supergirl nude. I used to get a lot of those, and I never felt comfortable with that, so I wouldn't do them because she's not my character, and it's you know.
You don't want that to represent you.
Yeah. If it was my own character and I didn't have a problem with drawing my character nude, then I'd be fine with it. But Supergirl's not my character, so I'm not going to draw her nude. You know.
Right.
Besides, if she was nude, she'd just be a blonde girl, wouldn't she? You wouldn't know that it was Supergirl much, especially the way I. So that's an odd request at a show. Another time at a show, Mike Turner and I used to hang out before he got sick a fair amount. I remember when he was drawing Fathom issue 2, going back up to his hotel room and watching him draw, I think it was the double page spread or finishing it off on the floor in his hotel room, and he was just drawing that, and I was sitting there chatting to him, drinking, and that was a pretty cool moment.
That would have been awesome.
We got on really well, Mike and I. We both had a fondness for the ocean. We both like martial arts. I remember sparring with him in the lobby of one of the hotels at conventions. Yeah, he was a great guy. That's meeting Stan Lee once at a show, and that was pure by chance. I was with Jeff, and Jeff said Stan and called him over, and it's my buddy Ian. Hi, how are you? And then he was off, and so I got to meet Stan. That was the same with William Shatner as well. I was doing a show in Toronto, and I was in the green room ready to go to the airport to go home, and I saw this guy standing next to me. He looks really familiar. I couldn't place it, and then suddenly, that's William Shatner. I just went over to him and said, Mr. Shatner, I'd really like to shake your hand. So I shook his hand. He said, hey, how are you? And then that was it, and that was off. It was good. So those are my the ones that really come to mind from conventions.
That's awesome. I would have loved to have watched Turner draw.
Hopefully, conventions will all start to happen again properly, like they used to, rather than online ones.
Well, we got a couple
face to face, but nothing beats the buzz of the show, does it? You know.
No,
we've got a couple states here. We've got a couple states here that are starting to kind of open up, and restrictions are being pulled back slowly. So I'm hopeful that maybe we can get back to some normal living and get to some conventions, because I miss conventions. I haven't been in years, and about the time I was starting to go again is when they shut everything down. So
it's your fault. Thanks, buddy.
Nice.
I was on a good ride. I just came back from Hawaii from Jimmy J's amazing Loacon.
Jimmy J, I haven't seen Jimmy in ages. I love
Jimmy. I love Jimmy. Like when I first met Jimmy, Rob, and Marat, like I was nervous. I was in my young 20s. Like I grew up loving Rob and Marat's work, and Jimmy just made me feel comfortable. He was like, "Hey, what do you like? What are you into? This and that." And when I table, I take that perspective, and then my own personalities. I like to talk. I like shaking people's hands when they buy my shit. So like a lot of that aspect, like showmanship, I always say is because of Jimmy. He's the best.
He is great. I remember back in the old days again, he won a competition on the radio, I think it was, to go skiing up at Big Bear, and he took me with him, and we got to hang out in this really cool lodge and go skiing and stuff. And he seems to remember Ryan Seacrest being there. I don't remember that, but he's got a better memory than me. but that was pretty cool because I'd only learned to ski the year before, and then suddenly, yeah, you know, he said, "Hey, you want to come skiing?" So it was great. Yeah, okay. So he's great, Jimmy.
Hard facts. Yeah, nothing but love for that guy. Let me see.
I haven't seen him in years, though. It's the same with Dan. I haven't seen Dan in years. Dan Frager.
Well, you know what we're gonna have to do is we had Dan and Marat on. We're gonna have to try to do Dan, Marat, and Ian on. We'll have a powwow.
Maybe even Carl. See if Carl will jump on. Have you met Carl? Carl Stater? I'll stay there.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Another great.
I drew a cover for him. I drew a cover for him once. Some character with like a little teddy bear on her back or something.
His deity books.
That was it. Yeah. I did a cover for that, and I think I might have drawn something else for him, but I can't remember. It was a long time ago. But yeah, I know Carl.
Right. Very cool.
I don't know him well, but I've met him a few times. Yeah.
Yeah, we might have to set up a powwow here and do a show and get everybody involved and shoot the shit and tell the stories. Because I would just sit back and let you guys all talk, and I'd geek the fuck out. I think it would be awesome. But yeah. Yep.
So that sounds great. I'd come back if.
Yeah, well, we'd love to have you back in general because we'd like to get you back on and do a longer stream at some point and just continue talking because this has been really fun. This is kind of stuff that Sean and I why we started the show for one. This is the art and stuff part of it. Is talking shop, talking behind the scenes and all that. So, but
I'll make sure I adjust my camera next time so I'm not so red.
Right.
Or just tell everybody you just got back from the beach.
Some of it is me now because I am quite hot now standing here and what have you. But when we started, it wasn't. It was just the camera. So I've gone scarlet from start to finish.
For everybody that's watching live and will be watching later on the re-airing of this when it gets to YouTube, make sure you visit Ian's site here. Look for some commissions. He's got a bunch of his art on here. For some reason, my computer's running slow because I tried to bring some of this stuff up and it just was loading. So, but check his site out, ianchurchill.com, and throw some money his way. Help him out. He's an awesome artist. And yeah, so I just want to promote that.
Hopefully, you can get to where you can do a crowdfunding for one of your projects. And honestly, Indiegogo seems like a great way.
I was going to say I'm working on MARINEMAN Volume 2. I mean, I have been for quite a while, but that's always bubbling on in the background. But obviously, that's it's not a paid gig, so I have to do that as and when I can afford to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I haven't ruled out a crowdfunding MARINEMAN Volume 2, but I just don't know yet. It's nowhere near approaching finish. So
yeah.
Now without getting too personal, do you own the rights? That sounds personal, but are you able to reprint the trade of Volume 1 so you can have a campaign out? Or is that just like not for Coven? Not for Coven. Are you for MARINEMAN? Can you reprint the Volume 1?
Yeah.
Do that as maybe test the waters, with that. If you're able to do it, it's all whatever.
Do what? Reprint Volume 1?
Yeah, maybe put a new cover on it, some added features, throw it on Indiegogo, do some different tiers, see what everybody else is kind of doing. And, it's there. So it's something, and you can kind of just build up the momentum.
But it's something anyone that likes MARINEMAN probably already has it by now. I would have thought. There's
always somebody's first comic, There's always that method. I'd like to see it.
Yeah.
Again, kind of.
Well, that's nice. If there's lots of people like you that would go out and buy it again, then it may be worth thinking about. But it's not really occurred to me before. Repackaging. It really exists. I'm looking to the future all the time, I suppose. Right.
We just had Don Shin. We just had Don Shin on not too long ago, and he was releasing all his X-Bar stuff he did with Bill Mouse. And so the campaign he's got that just actually ended, was like a reprint of all of his old stuff. So, and they did pretty well in their campaign. You know, it's just introduced. It's the old fans kind of coming back because you get new covers. You know, you spice it up a little bit for people, for collectors like us. You know, but then you bring in the new fans too, and then you use that to launch the next project, because the next thing they're doing is going to be brand new stuff from those two guys. You know, so it's a marketing tool, I guess you could do, especially when you have properties that are yours and you can control the reprinting rights and all that stuff. You know. That's just it's thoughts, you know, for sure.
Yeah, no, certainly worth thinking about. Just hadn't really occurred to me, to be honest. I'm always thinking about the next story and getting the next one out, rather than sort of like doing anything else with the current one that already exists. Because I know I can go onto Amazon and order it. So if I can do that, someone else can do that, and it just if it I don't know.
That's why you throw a new cover on, maybe extras like some sketches, you know, some characters, you know, stuff that nobody's gonna be able to get from the Amazon stuff, or the things you can find in back issues somewhere. You know, that's like new. That's where the collectors and guys like us that might have already had your work before will be like, oh shit, you know, I have that, but you know, I don't have it with this cover, and I don't have it with this cool sketch or whatever.
Dig it out of boxes, you know, like this year it's like,
you know. It appeals to the collector.
I kind of I've never done sketchbooks either. Artists do a lot of sketchbooks, don't they, and sell them at shows and stuff. I've never done that either. It's not something I've ever done. No, never once. Yeah.
Well, guys, I'm gonna bring this stream to a close, and Ian, we will definitely love to have you back on again, because this has been really, really fun. And great dude to talk to, down to earth, you know, and you're a hell of a talent. And we just want to thank you for coming on our show. We were really honored that you would come on and just talk with us, and you made our day.
Happy.
Absolutely. You've been a huge inspiration to us. You know, still look at your anatomy, so I can draw cool looking buff dudes. You know, when I so you're definitely in our template. You know, beautiful women.
I wouldn't concentrate too hard on my anatomy.
It looks cool. That's all that matters.
Back in the day, it was, you know, you didn't have to be anatomically correct. Let's say you just had to make it look cool. I remember I used to draw when I was on cable. I'd be drawing cable, and my anatomy wasn't, you know, probably what it should be. And Scott Hanna was inking me, and he'd fix all my anatomy. I would send it off, and we've laughed about this since. You know, I'd send it off to him, and he'd ink it, and he'd think, well, that's wrong, and he'd redo it so it looked right. And sometimes it would drive me nuts because I was specifically trying not to be anatomically correct, just so that it would look more, you know. But on the whole, he saved my bacon. You know, he made me look good a lot of times when I probably didn't look that good. So fair play to him, and good on him for doing that. And that's the beauty of a good inker, you know. A good inker will see the faults and correct them for you. It does strengthen you in some respects when you're in that collaborative process. You know, if you're drawing and inking yourself, then you won't see the mistakes that you're making sometimes, and they're there forever once they're printed.
Right.
But if you work with a good inker who's got a good eye and knows how to draw as well, as most inkers do, they'll see something and think, right, well, that's not right, and they'll just fix it and make the artist look good. And you can't put a price on that. That's what is that's being a professional is all about. There you go. I've got my tongue around it.
And we had this conversation the other day. Like, you know, I've got mad respect for good inkers, because they're like they back up the artist, because they can correct things and they can make that artist look good without taking away from their style. You know, the good inkers like Scott Williams and Jim Lee. Scott Williams does so much work in Jim Lee's in his art, but it looks like Jim Lee. You know, you wouldn't really know it until you break down the pencils and the inks. Us as just fans look at the finished work and we're like, oh, that's Jim Lee. He's so badass. And you look how he renders. And then later on in life, you realize that, wow, that's actually Scott Williams doing a lot of that different rendering techniques, you know, and then you kind of learn how well good inkers and good artists can actually work together.
And that, you know, a good inker will polish a penciler up, you know, and just make him just look great sometimes. I mean, that's like we were talking about earlier. Norm and I have got almost like a shorthand now. You know, when I draw something and give it to Norm to ink, he knows exactly, you know, what he's doing with respect to my art style, so that I don't have to put all the noodly doodly stuff in, because he knows exactly where I normally do it, and he'll do it for me sometimes, or, you know, especially if there's a time. So Norm's great, and we laughed about it once. We kind of didn't know where one of us would end and the other one would start, you know, because we were both kind of in the same mindset, you know.
In sync.
In sync, exactly. Yeah, another boy band for you.
ain't nothing stopping us now. That's all I can say.
That's great.
Yeah, that relationship between an inker and an artist, I think, is awesome. When you can actually get guys, when you work together, and then you trust the guy that you're giving your work to. He knows you so well that he can see maybe a loose thing that you did and be like, I know exactly how Ian's going to do this, or wants this done. I'm going to do it, you know, in my way, but I'm going to do it so it looks like him. And it's just like that kind of seamless kind of partnership when you're creating art, I think is awesome. We have the shared aspect of that.
That's all credit to Rob as well. You know, Rob was the guy that paired me up with Norm. Rob thought Norm would be good on me. And he was dead right. You know, it worked out well. So
he's got an eye for talent. Like
Rob does,
you know, it's phenomenal. Like giving people breaks, and where people from the extreme era, where they are now, you know, like some are directing cartoons, some are working in the film business, some toys, still comics, what have you. They're still in the arts, and they're titans, if you will. Like they're doing big shit. You're all doing big shit, which is fucking, excuse the cursing, but it's fucking phenomenal as a fan growing up on you guys' stuff, you know?
It's our show, we curse.
Like I said earlier, you won't find anyone that's more into comics than Rob. Rob is the most enthusiastic, apart from maybe Jonathan Ross is on an equal footing with enthusiasm to comics. But Rob is just, you know, he's a force of nature.
That he is. Absolutely.
I'll spread that.
All right, everybody. I'm going to end it here. We are going to have Ian back at some point. We will set something up for later on in the year, because this has been awesome. And maybe we'll try to do a jam piece. I'll talk to Dan, and we'll see if maybe we can get some guys on here and have a round table kind of show and have a good time. So Sean, before we get out of here, I know actually before we get out of here, Ian, do you want to plug anything, your social media sites, anything you're working on right now that you need people to know about, check out?
No, can't think of anything at the moment. I've been doing a lot of commissions lately.
There you go.
I've been doing some covers for Richard Starkings.
Okay.
The ELEPHANTMEN.
It's 9:30.
I think he's on Comixology, isn't he? Sorry, that's my computer. It announces the time.
So says the chief.
What else have I been up to lately? Everything escapes me when I'm trying to think of it. You know, you put me on the spot. Check out. Go on.
I would say you're on Facebook, right? Are you on Twitter or any of the other social media?
No, I'm not very Facebook. Yeah. Okay. That's about it. Yeah. I do have an Instagram account, but I've never used it.
I'm gonna follow you right now.
You know, I just but yeah, I just never got beyond Facebook, really.
You're not really missing too much.
It's just, all the same. It's time, isn't it? You know, all the time that you spend on all these different platforms is time that you could be working. So, you know, on your drawing. So I've never really gotten into it, but I perhaps should. You know, people swear by Twitter, don't they? And
well, they definitely swear on Twitter, so it can be a garbage fest from time to time.
When it comes to commissions, is the easiest way for someone to get a hold of you through your website or like DM you on Facebook? Through your website? All right, there you go, everyone.
Yeah.
Bring that up one more time. So.
Oh, and like I said, I'm still working on MARINEMAN Volume 2 as well.
Yep.
As and when I have time. But as far as stuff from Marvel or DC, I've got nothing on at the moment. Yeah. But I'll always there you go. I'll always shout out on Facebook, you know, if I'm up to something or other. So you know, I try and keep people aware of what's going on, you know, as far as what I'm working on and what have you.
Yeah.
Well, this would be a great opportunity for the chat to spread Ian's website, get on him to get into crowdfunding. MARINEMAN Volume 1, you know, and then we can get Volume 2, and then we get more of his properties.
MARINEMAN Volume 1, you should go and buy MARINEMAN Volume 1.
Yes. Go find it. Go buy it, regardless where you can get it.
I've not met a single person that hasn't enjoyed it when they've read it, and you know, I still think it's, you know, one of my favorite things I've ever done. You know, I wrote it, I drew it, I co-colored it, and I just, you know, I loved it. I loved it. And if you take a chance and read it, you won't be disappointed.
Everybody,
it may not be
the
style that you're used to seeing from me. You know, it's a more of an animated style, but you know, you soon get past that, and once you get into the story, it's a hell of a read, I think.
True.
There's my plug.
There you go.
There you
go. Awesome. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
All right, Sean. Before we get out of here, where can everybody find your work and see you?
Yeah, just follow the name Sean Ahrendt on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Also on Facebook, Geeks at the Beach, which is the convention I throw down here in Delaware. We'll do it again when life gets back to normal. We're gonna figure out one of those virtual shows. I don't know how to do it yet, but I'll find out and I'll let everybody know. Whoever wants to come on, we'll work some sort of magic out. Type 1 is my book that I'll be launching later this year, and I still got a schedule on my own channel on Sean Ahrendt's YouTube channel. The diabetic show that I'm going to be doing with my friend Myra, who is a classically trained ballerina. And we're going to talk about being both in the arts and being our lives as type 1. We're going to give that a shot and see if it works. And that should be sometime March or April-ish as of now. And what about you, Joey? Yeah, he's going to be producing the show, so I can do even less shit, which is awesome.
Yep. You won't even see me. I'll just be doing everything behind the scenes.
Yeah.
You can find me on all the social medias like we talked about, you know, everything everybody knows about. Joe Sonntag or Joe M. Sonntag. Just look that up. YouTube, I have a YouTube channel. My book, Reaper Destroyer, I'm working on right now. Hopefully will be out for campaign later this year. Aiming for July, but it could be September or later, depending on how pages are going. So, yeah, that's pretty much about it. Thank you so much for everybody joining us today.
Is that what's on the drawing board?
This is actually something I'm working for. This is a pinup I'm doing for Mark Polton, who's doing a campaign coming up here pretty soon that I'm trying to finish for him. This is his character, Viking Wolf, that I'm working on. But our books, since you asked, I'll just bring this up. The book that's where I was at. Yep.
Yeah.
That's my book, and then that's Type 1 where Sean's at. That's his book. So we're trying to get those ready to launch for later this year. A lot of work, but passion projects.
You can see I love Extreme Studios, by the way I draw my characters, because like that's my realm. The Extreme Studios era, like that's like going to church for me, or if anything, you know. So I'm very inspired.
Yeah, you can tell like Top Cow based on how I I came up and stuff. But
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
but
I missed out on the Extreme Studios thing. I went in at the Awesome Entertainment.
Awesome.
But you're adjacent. You're extreme adjacent. You know.
We clump you in with that group because of Rob and everything. You know.
That's fair.
So
yeah.
But all right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Big thanks to Ian for coming on the show. It's been an absolute blast and honor to have you on and talk to you. So great.
Thank you.
And
happy to be here. Really enjoyed it.
Yay.
And we'll let you go because we know it's late there, and we'll definitely have you on again. So everybody that's watching, go to Ian's website, get a commission, buy his work, throw some money his way.
Spam him about MARINEMAN and everything else that he wants to create, please.
Yep, absolutely. So, all right, chat. We love you. We will see you all
Wednesday. I think.
Yep, we're gonna be on Wednesday. Let me just.
Joe Catapano.
Yeah, Wednesday we got Joe Catapano coming on, and so join us for that. It's gonna be a fun show as always because you get to see us and we're goofy as hell. So, until then, everybody be good. Take care of each other. Be safe out there. And as always, picture me naked.
Picture me naked.
I will talk to you all later. Peace.